The Galactic Empire controlled a vast galaxy with over 1 million worlds under its command. But as massive as the Star Wars galaxy is, it's just one part of a much larger and mostly unexplored universe. This raises a fascinating question. With all its military might, why did the Empire seem so determined to stay within its own borders? Why was any major exploration beyond the galactic rim seemingly off limits? In this video, we'll look at the key factors that shaped this Imperial strategy. It's a complex mix of cold pragmatism, immense physical barriers, and a deep-seated fear of what was lurking in the dark void between galaxies. First, to understand the Empire's reluctance, we need to look at its core philosophy. The entire regime wasn't built on a foundation of curiosity or discovery. It was built on one thing: absolute control. This idea was formally written down in what became known as the Tarkin Doctrine. Shortly after the Clone Wars, Grand Moff Tarkin proposed that the best way to rule a galaxy of millions of star systems wasn't to patrol every corner, but to rule through the fear of force. His argument was that by building weapons so terrifyingly powerful, the mere threat of their use would keep any planet from stepping out of line. The Death Star was the ultimate result of this thinking, a battle station capable of destroying an entire world to crush any hope of rebellion. This doctrine tells us a lot about the Imperial mindset. Palpatine's primary concerns were always internal threats: crushing the Rebel Alliance, eliminating political rivals, and solidifying his own power. In that context, extragalactic exploration was seen as a strategic waste. Every Star Destroyer, every credit, and every scientist was needed for the project of internal suppression. A fleet sent into the intergalactic void was a fleet that could no longer enforce the Emperor's will at home. This doesn't mean no exploration happened. The Empire did maintain an Imperial Exploration Corps for scouting frontiers and identifying resources, but it shows that every Imperial asset was ultimately funneled toward internal control, not outward discovery. From Palpatine's perspective, until he had achieved a decisive checkmate against his internal enemies, looking for a new game in another galaxy was an unacceptable risk. Next up is a more practical problem: the brutal physics of intergalactic travel in the Star Wars universe. The galaxy is effectively surrounded by an almost impassable barrier. Within the galaxy, hyperspace travel relies on stable, charted routes called hyperspace lanes. These lanes are calculated based on the gravitational pull of stars and other large objects. At the edge of the galaxy, however, this system completely breaks down. In the Legends continuity, this area is known as the Galactic Barrier, a chaotic tangle of hyperspace where navigation becomes almost impossible. A blind jump would have a near certain chance of ending in disaster, either by colliding with a rogue object or simply being lost forever in the void. In canon, while a hard barrier isn't as defined, the principle is similar. The unknown regions, let alone the void beyond, are filled with shifting, unstable hyperspace routes that make travel incredibly dangerous without the aid of a force-sensitive navigator. A key example of this danger is the Tale of the Outbound Flight project from Legends. This was an ambitious Republic-era mission to travel to another galaxy. However, the project was intercepted and destroyed long before it even reached the galactic edge, primarily due to the actions of Darth Sidious and a young Chiss commander named Thrawn, who had their own reasons for stopping it. Its fate became a grim cautionary tale for generations. The void was not welcoming, and the journey itself was full of peril. On top of the physical barriers, Palpatine had a more immediate problem. He hadn't even fully secured his own galaxy yet. A huge part of the galactic map is labeled the Unknown Regions, and this wasn't just empty space. It was home to powerful independent civilizations. The most notable of these was the Chiss Ascendancy, a sophisticated and militarized society. Through his alliance with Grand Admiral Thrawn, Palpatine was very aware of the Chiss and their capabilities. Thrawn himself had spent years fighting other threats in the Unknown Regions, proving that the Empire was far from the only major power around. The same navigational hazards that made leaving the galaxy difficult also made controlling this region a strategic nightmare. So, Palpatine's focus wasn't on banning exploration, but on containment and reconnaissance. He established secret observatories and research stations on the edge of the Unknown Regions. The goal of these outposts wasn't peaceful discovery, but to identify and assess potential threats before they could challenge his rule. For a methodical ruler like Palpatine, it made perfect sense to secure every corner of his own domain before even considering what lay outside. But this brings us to the final, and perhaps most terrifying reason for the Empire's inward focus. This answer comes directly from the Star Wars Legends continuity, where it's suggested that Palpatine knew of a specific horrifying threat from beyond the galaxy: the Yuuzhan Vong. The Yuuzhan Vong were a species of religious fanatics from another galaxy, and they were a biological horror story. Their technology was entirely organic. Their ships were living creatures, and they viewed all machines as blasphemy. They were masters of genetic manipulation, and their entire culture was based on pain and ritual sacrifice. The most terrifying thing about them, however, was their relationship to the Force. They existed completely outside of it. They couldn't be sensed by Jedi or Sith, their actions couldn't be predicted with foresight, and they were a conceptual blind spot that terrified Force users. Now, a very prominent theory in Legends is that Palpatine's entire military buildup, the Death Star, the massive fleets, was secretly intended to prepare the galaxy for the Vong invasion he foresaw. While the official reason for the Death Star was the Tarkin Doctrine, this theory suggests a deeper, more paranoid motive. Palpatine may have known the Vong were a threat that neutralized the Empire's two biggest advantages, its advanced technology and its mastery of the Force. He feared a confrontation with an enemy he couldn't control or comprehend, and which would eventually be responsible for an invasion that cost the galaxy hundreds of billions of lives. So to recap, the Empire's refusal to explore beyond the galaxy wasn't about a lack of curiosity, but a deliberate grand strategy. First, there was the strategic imperative of the Tarkin Doctrine. All resources had to be focused on controlling the galaxy they already had, crushing any internal dissent. Second, you have the immense physical barriers, the chaotic and unstable hyperspace at the galactic edge that made any intergalactic journey a near suicidal gamble. And finally, we have the compelling theory from Legends that Palpatine was aware of existential threats like the Yuuzhan Vong and was attempting to turn the entire galaxy into an impenetrable fortress before confronting them. His fear wasn't of a fight, but of facing an uncontrollable cosmic horror before his own power was absolute. He wasn't just an explorer. His plan was to one day meet those horrors as a conqueror. The Star Wars galaxy is just one of countless galaxies in its universe. What other kinds of civilizations or cosmic threats do you think are lurking in the void between them? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Imperial Grand Strategy, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more explorations into the farthest reaches of Star Wars lore.